Welcome to the What's Your Weird Story podcast.
Everyone has at least one good story.
And some of us have stories that are just to the left of normal.
We're interested in the ones that push the boundaries of what we can perceive.
Stories that defy explanations.
Stories with an air of mystery.
Stories we might not share
for fear of being thought of differently.
But don't worry, we're all friends here. So, what's your weird story? Hello, Weirdsville. Happy Halloween. That was terrible. But hey, you are listening to the What's Your Weird Story podcast, your weekly Halloween, kind of. It's your podcast for weird stories as told by the people who experience them. And I am your host, Adam Beebe. And with me, as always, is your other host, Mr. Barry Johnston. Hello, Barry.
Happy Halloween. How are you, sir?
I am. I'm feeling like I'm a mummy, like I'm 1,000 years old. No, I'm all right. How are you doing?
Good. Hope you're getting your fill on candy.
Oh, well, I'm trying to slim down my I'm looking too much like a jack-o'-lantern. So I'm trying to avoid the candy because, man, I tell you what, I would this is one of my favorite times of year because I go by and I see the caramel apples at the grocery store, dude, and those are just temptation in a plastic box.
Do you go nuts or no nuts?
Oh, nuts, dude.
Oh,
nuts.
me
I like
too.
the crunch on the crunch, man.
I'm with you. I'm with you, man.
And I'm not so. I prefer the caramel over the candied.
Agreed.
The candied are okay, but it's just not the same to me. I think the combination of the caramel, and the apple, that crispness of the apple,
the crisp, the crunch, the gooiness from the caramel. I mean, nothing better. Nothing better than that.
And you gotta have the nuts, man.
You got to.
Well, you can go without, but the nuts on there, unless if you have a nut allergy, you should avoid the nuts. But that the nuts are good. They got just extra next level.
Definitely.
Next level. So
definitely. Well, when my kids were younger, I remember I would just sort of pillage their candy when they would get home. So I would always. I'm a Reese's Pieces guy or a Reese's peanut butter cup guy.
Are you really?
Oh, love them. So anything chocolate, really, for the most part, I'm pretty into. But my kids are growing up now, so we don't really do that much, Though there may be a couple of kids that show up at the door. We kind of live, our neighborhood's kind of away from everything, so I think there's a couple of people that have small kids, so we'll probably give out a little bit. But other than that, man.
But you will this year. You will be doing will you do some kind of social distancing trick or treat, or
I don't know what the rules are, to be honest with you. I haven't really looked up what's going on with that stuff. That's a great question. But like I said, if we get anything, it's going to be very minimal. I mean, I don't even know if we had any last year, but there have been some younger couples moving in. So the area that I live in, mostly older folks that built their homes out here in the 70s, and now they're they're moving on, and other folks are moving in. So yeah, it'll be fun regardless. I wish everybody a safe and happy Halloween.
Yes, indeed.
Speaking of moving on, my folks, so they sold their house. They decided to get an RV and travel. And so this whole last, 6 weeks or so was just about getting their house sold, moving all their stuff out, putting stuff into storage, moving a lot of it here to my house. Because I
was going to ask if they were going to use your house as storage.
I don't know if you can see this or not, but sitting right next to me is a huge old antique dresser that was my dad's.
Nice.
I have so much stuff in my house right now, dude. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So we've been getting them settled, and they just left yesterday, man, for their first outing in the RV. So they're excited. They're going up to the Pacific Northwest to to hang out with my sister for a little while. So it'll be fun. It's a long drive, man.
That is. Are they now? Is it the full RV, like in vehicle RV, or they got like a fifth wheel?
Fifth wheel. Yeah, it's a fifth wheel.
Towing it behind.
Towing it, and it's big. It's very big. I was shocked at how big it was. It's one of those where the sides push out. You know, it's super nice. It's like nicer than my house. It's they got a little fireplace. You know, it's not. It's kind of one of those electric log fireplaces that puts heat out, and nice big screen and a nice little stove in there, like a full fridge. I mean, it's like it's not one of these little guys. You know, it's a full blown freezer fridge combo. It's a situation, and then their bedroom's nice, and it's pretty sweet, man. So
that's cool.
That's
cool. So they're swingers now. Is that what you're telling me?
I hope not. That's an awful picture. I could just see my dad swinging.
I actually can't. Mom, not so much.
Oh, that is hilarious. That is hilarious. No pink flamingos. No pink flamingos. Those of you in the know will know what that's about, I would assume. I've heard rumors anyway. So, I don't.
That's what the pink flamingos in people's yards are then when they've been.
That's what they say.
Yeah, you never know. They probably changed it by now.
Right.
Something else. I don't know.
Yeah. But, it's
because you see all those now. People will go and like. I don't know what for, but they go and they pink flamingos somebody's yard. Yeah. And they put a bunch of the pink flamingos in somebody's yard.
Yeah.
And like, leave a note or something. We've been pink flamingoed, and I guess you have to, I don't know, maybe make a donation or something. I don't know what it is, but I I don't understand it. So I don't think,
it's a swinger. That's not a swinger deal.
But maybe it is, and that they're like, hey, you're pink flamingo.
That's
next
extortion.
Is at your house. So,
that's
get the mop and glow out.
That is hilarious. Well, we'll see. But anyway, so that's been exciting and tiring at the same time. Yeah. So anyway, we're just chilling now,
Cool.
So what about you? Anything else going on over there in Ohio land?
No, here in the Buckeye State, just same old, just working and keeping on. And, I'm working behind the scenes on some stuff for our upcoming Spin Jammer, our music podcast. And we got some cool stuff lined up that I think people are going to like. We've got a couple of bands interviewed. And we're working on some of that stuff, and so that's kind of what I've been doing, and of course trying to get guests for this show, and lining all that up. So hey, if anybody out there hasn't if this is your first time on listening to the show, thank you for joining us. And if you've got a weird story, any kind of weird story, we really we like to hear good stories, and we get a lot of recommendations, a lot of guests as recommendations from other guests and friends of the podcast, which is actually how we got today's guest.
That's right. Yeah, today we have on, her name is Chrissy, and she was brought to us by a previous guest, and she's got some cool stories, man. She has some psychic abilities, and she has some cool sort of ghost hunting stories.
Yeah.
And just kind of the story of her life, and it's really, really cool stuff. So I can't wait for people to hear it.
Yeah, we had a good time talking to her. She has some really good stories, and she even did a bit of a reading.
That's right.
For Barry. So
yes.
Let's get to it. Chrissy, thanks for joining us. What's your weird story?
Well, which one, I suppose? So this weird story goes all the way back to my childhood. And the first memory I can recall is that actually of seeing a ghost, who I later learned in life was my maternal grandfather, who had passed when I was very, very young, a couple months old. I was sitting there at Christmas. I was holding a present in my lap, and I looked up, and there was a Christmas tree in the corner. And there was this man who was glowing. It was almost like he had a golden aura around him. He was looking at me, and he was smiling. And like he was doing the physical act of like laughing, not like you're haha, you're funny, but like I'm really glad to see you. But he made zero noise, none. And I looked up, and I'm like, I remember thinking, why is no one looking at this person? Oh, what's the deal? And then I looked back at my present. I looked back up, and he was gone. And that's really the first full memory I have in my entire life.
Wow.
And this same house, my middle sister and I, middle sister actually being clairaudience, but meaning she can hear them. We're pretty sure it had a vortex in it, a vortex being just like a revolving door where they can come in and out of. So I kind of grew up in more or less a haunted house.
Wow.
And when I was 11 years old, I was in the bookstore with my mom, and they had a deck of tarot cards there, and I asked her to buy it for me, and she did. And it was from there that this really took off, because tarot cards, fortune telling, palm reading, tea leaf reading, it exercises a certain part of your mind. And it's gotten to the point where I no longer need the cards to read people.
Oh,
and I can also read people who are, not among the choir invisible. I have done this with a number of paranormal investigation groups. I've done it on a personal level, trying to connect people with loved ones that are gone. And one thing that I am privileged to be able to do is offer this for free. So I will never charge people for the privilege of being able to talk to someone who they miss terribly.
Wow.
And if you're looking for a specific story, that'd probably be the Casa Madrid. So a little bit of history behind this building. It is in Melrose Park, Illinois. And while I was there, it was known as Big Timer Sound Shop. But back in its day, it was it's a bootlegging operation run loosely by the syndicate run by Al Capone, because it's in the Chicago area, of course.
Right.
So there's a connection. And I was taken there as a medium. And the first thing that struck me when I got there was this place, where they would do underlights for your cars, nice sound systems, kind of a Pimp My Ride sort of place. That this was operated and owned by massive, muscular, barrel-chested, tattooed Mexican guys who looked like they're about 10 feet tall, and they would not go in this basement. They would not.
Wow.
Damn.
They would have nothing to do with it. They would hear hubcaps and tires just crash in this basement. They go down there, nothing's out of place. They would hear voices, footsteps, feel like they were being watched and followed. And they had a repair guy who came in to fix their stairs, and he felt like he was being watched, and he just couldn't handle it anymore, lost his patience, said, if you're there, just come out and tell me. A little while there, something grabs his foot. He runs out of the building and leaves his tools behind, never comes back.
Whoa.
Wow.
So I was there with an investigation group actually being run out of, wasn't Gurney, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the town. But I get there and I go into the basement. I prefer working in the dark because as a medium, when more of your senses are cut off, the more power goes to the other one.
Well, that makes sense.
I'm walking around in this basement with a camera guy and like two camera guys, actually. One had a flashlight. But I'm just walking around and I get this feeling that it's like I'm surrounded. And it's like they're watching me from the periphery. And then they'll do that sometimes because they don't like being confronted. And eventually I pick up on this energy and what that's like. To me and to you, or to someone else, it would be no different than seeing another person in the same room walking through a door, even though I don't actually see them. I just know they're there. Huh. I just do. The information just appears in my head.
That's interesting. I was going to ask if when you did see them, how solid did they appear? But I guess if you just more perceive them rather than see them, then that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
Yeah.
It really is.
So
And
you
go ahead.
This is something that you've sort of had your entire life, right? I mean, you just had this ability, and then as you've grown, you have continued developing this. Is this something that you have to put a lot of effort into developing and keeping? Like, is it something that deteriorates if you don't use it?
It's like a muscle. If you don't exercise it, it will atrophy.
Right.
Okay.
Interesting. That's fascinating.
Yeah. It's very hard to quantify. Really, I say, well, I can tell you it's there, and you just more or less have to take my word for it.
Sure.
Right.
And I have to provide things like what's he wearing, what's the body language like, can you get a name in order to prove that what I'm seeing and what I'm perceiving is in fact there.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's interesting. I like that you're upfront about that too, with people, and the fact that you're trying not to take advantage of folks. Because you see a lot of that in that world where it's like, okay, I can see something that you can't. I'm going to tell you something that you may or may not agree with, but it's my perception, and pay me $100 for it or something,
Yeah,
like those guys that are on that. What was it, Crossing Over or something like that?
Yeah.
That guy.
John Edwards.
Yeah.
Hate that guy.
That was who were those are old tricks, old sideshow tricks of cold readings, and they have they don't ever show on the show where they have somebody go out in the audience, hand you a card to fill out,
right,
and then they have somebody in the earbud telling them information, and then he's like and he gets all and they edit out whenever he gets it completely wrong, that kind of stuff, and it's
of course,
and I've seen that on his show. I've seen other shows where they've done that. So yeah, it's sure, if you take comfort from that kind of thing, then that's fine. But at the same time,
just beware.
It just beware.
Everywhere.
So but you are. I mean, obviously, like you do it for free for people, which is really cool.
Thank you.
So that shows me that you have. That you're not taking advantage of this gift, so you're or exploiting it, I should say. You're not exploiting this gift, and that's really cool. That's a really cool thing. So,
Thank you.
So okay. So anyway, back in the basement.
Back in the basement, there's an energy, which is the best term I have for it, and I follow it. And it tries to lose me in this really labyrinthine basement. I mean, this place was insane. It had doors going to nowhere, hallways that would just spiral into a wall. Wow. There were windows, places. It was very, very weird. And I get to this back room, which is more or less just a broom closet. And it's worth noting that I was later told there was no active electricity going through this basement. It was just dead space. So we get to this room, and I'm standing with my feet basically at the edge of the doorway. And one of the weirdest things I've ever seen is that the light from the flashlights on the camera barely penetrated this room.
Wow.
So that was physical evidence to me that there's something going on.
Right. And
I have in my hand, I don't know if you're familiar with it, it's called a K2 meter, where you can say, are you here? And the lights will flash, showing spikes in energy. Yes, no, think like that.
Yeah.
I'm holding this in my hand just so the camera can see that I'm not just standing here looking at the dark, that there's something going on. And I talked to it, and it wouldn't believe the hostility coming from this room, because it did not like the fact that it was cornered. It had been found. I should say he, because it was a male energy. And I asked a question along the lines of, will you be mad if I come in this room and this just went right to Reddit, did not want me in there. So me being in there in the capacity that I am, I stepped into the room because
boy.
I'm here to challenge it. That is my function.
Yeah.
Find it, challenge it, talk to it, figure out what it wants. Not happy. And it just fled. And I'm like, okay, now I guess I got to find you again. And I will. And it knows I will. Because it's so hard to explain.
Well, it can only go so far, right? I mean, it's sort of attached to that area or whatever. So, you know, you being you and being able to feel those things, there's only so far it can go, I would imagine. I don't know much about that world, but that's what I would think anyway.
Yeah. And everyone has a different level of perception. Someone might be able to physically see them. I can't. Someone might be able to hear them, like my sister. I can't. So it depends on what you're capable of, what you're trying to do, and what you're attempting to accomplish.
Sure.
And on our way up, and I'd love to get the recording for this, we're walking and we're all wearing soft shoes because that's a requirement during any ghost hunt because you don't want clicking from shoes to be mistaken as something it isn't. So we're walking up and we, as a group, we hear like clicking on the cement floor behind us. It's like dress shoes. And we stop and it stops. It's like almost like Scooby-Doo right now. It's like we're walking and we stop and it stops. So we tried this a couple of times being ghost hunters. We're like, let's test this out. And I guess we were really starting to annoy somebody because from behind us, from the darkness, we hear a, like it was really exasperating with what we're trying to do. And we're like, we just start laughing. We're like, did you hear that? Because it was funny to us. Like we start to piss someone off back there. So we go up and another team comes down and I come down for my second sweep, which was really not extraordinary until I'm on my way back up. And just out of the darkness, this female energy appears and she's like, come here, I need to show you something. Come here. You need to follow me. I have to show you this. I'm like, okay, I'm coming. Calm down. Like, just calm down. One thing at a time. She was like, she wasn't crying, but she was like frantic. Like, I need to show you this. Like, you need to see this. And I follow her and I follow her really just this room that was kind of tucked in the back of the staircase. And I open it and it was just like, felt like walking into a funeral. And I felt this room had something to do with her. And I turned to her and I'm like, I'm so sorry. You want to tell me what happened? But she had almost been driven insane because all she could said was like, I need to show you this. Come here. I need to show you this. And I'm like trying to get her to like, just calm down. Tell me what happened. And then she just receded back into the darkness, mostly still going, you need to see this. I need to show you something. I need to show you something. And then she was just gone.
Wow.
And later I found out that a young woman about the age of 20 had been murdered down there by a jealous boyfriend. Was found out that she was running around on him. So I think I encountered her and she was more or less a prisoner in this basement. So if I ever went back there, I'd go back there for her. And
how long ago do you know? How long ago was that?
This was around the Prohibition era that most of this went down.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for folks that don't know, Al Capone was a pretty bad dude. And do some research if you don't know who he is, you young folks. He was a gangster, and he had quite a footprint in Chicago, and
the area around.
Yeah, he was.
Really.
The whole country, yeah.
Yeah.
He was one of the big players. Yeah, he was one of the big players when it came to distribution of alcohol, and I'm sure other things.
He definitely had his fingers in all sorts of things.
Yeah,
and crime, also organized crime. I mean, when The Untouchables, that's a great movie to go back to.
Yes,
with Kevin Costner and Sean Connery.
Yeah,
and that's a good movie to go back and see, kind of a dramatization of that era. And in it of itself, really good movie. So.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's, I mean, it's not surprising that his enterprises have left a, impression, I don't know if it's psychic impression or what is the correct term, but it has, I mean, they have left an historic impression on our society and our culture. And so, you know, I mean, obviously, you know, anything that leaves that kind of information, you know, behind is going to influence, you know, I guess everyone and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
on multiple levels, apparently. So yeah.
So was that, you know, that area of the building she was talking about, that was not where you were before, right? That was a different area that you were in when you encountered the dark entity, male figure?
It was all in the same basement complex.
Oh, okay.
But it was in, that's where all this activity was happening. And, you know, the whole cliche of the haunted basement, okay, there's some truth to it. But it was all in the same floor, I'd call it.
Right. Wow. So a lot happened down there for sure.
Now, do you have the ability to kind of, I mean, how much communication are you able to have with these spirits?
Quite a lot, actually. So there's one story that I can write. I'm sure she wouldn't mind. Where I was at a friend's party, and I'm just sitting there, and we were just eating dinner, and I'm having a drink, and all of a sudden, there's like an energy in the corner. I'm like, hello, how can I help you? And it was an older man, and there was a friend of ours here who has abilities similar to mine, and I said, who's that? And he said, oh, that's Patty's dad. She was a guest at this party, and she had just gone inside to lay down and sit in the air conditioning. So I said, okay, I'm going to go and find Patty and tell her that her dad has come to see her. And I related a number of things to her. And if I'm having a conversation, I will speak out loud, be like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Were you murdered? Did someone kill you? Did you get sick? And the answer just pops into my head. And I realize how bizarre and crazy and outrageous that sounds. It just does. I have an actual mouth to communicate. They don't. So they can only influence the energy around them to convey their answer. So it's like half of a telepathic conversation.
Okay.
I remember Brandy had said that when you guys were young and I guess kind of just new friends or whatever, she would see you talking to the air and all that stuff. She didn't know what was going on, and but you were obviously already, you know, tapping into all of that, which is I don't know, that would make a really cool sequence in a movie.
Yeah, it would.
So, okay. So, do you, I guess, I don't know how, like, do you have, so with this young girl, do you have the ability to say, hey, I've seen this now. I know what's gone on. You can go or you can leave. Can you tell them, you know, I mean, that their rest is coming or whatever. I don't know. But I guess you kind of know what I'm getting at. Can you say, go on to the light,
Yes.
or go home or whatever?
Yes. Yes, and releasing is kind of my thing, because many times they simply have not had anyone try to reach out to them, and that way to try and help. A lot of people are just here to, I want to be scared by this spirit, but that's exploitative because they're people too. They're just humans that lack physical bodies in my eyes.
Okay.
So, God, I don't know how far this is going to go, but I'll admit it. So if I go on a ghost tour of a haunted location, watch your ass, because I'm there to let your ghost go.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's good, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, like, because I don't know. Everybody has kind of a different idea of what is after, because nobody's really, well, I guess you're more certain than most of us on what it is, because you can see, but like, I think it's a good idea to, I think it's cool that you do that and let them go and put them onto the next plane or whatever it is, so that they can have their rest or they can move on to the next cycle or whatever it is that is there. But I think it's pretty cool. I think that's,
Is it, Do they get stuck in a time loop or something? Like, I've always wondered that. Like, what is it that traps them? Because, I mean, we know the residual hauntings, that are impressions or whatever. And that's different, right? Than a what do you call it? An intelligent haunting, or I don't know. Okay.
Yes. There's a couple of scenarios where that can happen, and it's worth mentioning at this point that really is one of the great unknowns. We can make our best guess as to why they stay. We can make an educated guess, but in the end, we don't know. But commonly, and not every earthbound spirit is unhappy. Some people might stick around because they want to look after their family and make sure everyone's okay before they move on, or they were very happy in a place and they want to stay there.
Right.
Other times, especially in cases of a tragic or like death where they just weren't expecting it, there's a widely held theory that they simply, it's the trauma of it has not registered and they do not know they are dead. And this will manifest a lot when someone buys a house and they start remodeling. Stuff starts happening because you're like, oh, these people, strangers in my house, they're tearing up my floors. What else am I supposed to start throwing things to try to get them to leave?
Yeah. We hear that. We've been hearing that a lot. About how people once some kind of remodeling or something like that starts happening is when activity starts kicking up. Is for like hauntings and stuff like that. But
what was that? What was that movie? I'm sorry. What was that movie with Nicole Kidman? Do you remember that movie when she takes the elders?
No,
the others. The others. Do you remember that movie?
Yes, that movie should be watched by every psychic, medium, ghost hunter on Earth, because it really showed just how terrified some spirits are and can be when you come in and you start doing things and they're like, what?
Yeah.
It's like treat these spirits like people, give them some dignity. Don't do like ghost adventures. Go in there, say, all right, you fucking ghosts, I'm going to come in here and you better say something. I hate that.
Right.
Because he's mean to them.
Yeah, he is.
He's mean.
Well, I mean, Ghost Bros, right? I mean, that's why most people call them the Ghost Bros, at least that I know. But we're big advocates on the fact that, you don't want to go and be hostile and provoke kind of response to try and get a response. I mean, that just seems rude. It seems really risky, and to a degree, it seems a little ignorant of the fact, but I mean, that guy's got a lot more money than I do, so I don't know. Hey everybody, you're listening to the What's Your Weird Story podcast. You probably knew that already because you're listening or downloaded to the episode off of your iTunes or your Spotify or whatever place you get your podcast from. We want to thank you for listening. We also want to remind you to like us, follow us, subscribe to us, make sure that you get your new podcast episode every week. We'd also like to ask you to rate and review so that we can grow our audience, we can have more friends, we can have more stories. So thanks for listening to What's Your Weird Story.
So how long have you been doing the ghost hunting thing? Is that new or something that you've kind of always done?
The truth be told, I haven't done it for quite a while now, several years. I've really moved into more of the private reading arena just because I'm in kind of near Madison, and this last group I ran with was out of, nearest to Chicago, so that's quite a haul.
Sure.
So pure logistics have kept me out of it, but I have been looking for a new group, maybe local, who is in search of a reputable, reliable medium, so who knows?
Yeah. The Madison area is a great area. There's a lot of history there and a cool town. A lot of great places to go and check out. So I'm sure there's somebody around there that that would be interested in you doing that. And that's something that we haven't had a ton. We've had some folks come on talk about that. We had a guy, Dustin Walls, who came on and talked about he was a ghost hunter, and then Tammy, our friend Tammy, she came on. She also did some ghost hunting too. But you know, that is, I don't know if I'd ever want to do that, because of what Adam was talking about. It's like those things have the ability to follow you home, and I don't know, I don't know if I want anything attached to me, you know, in that
So
in
you
that
can
way.
avoid that.
Yeah.
You can avoid that, actually.
Okay.
So, a couple of few words of ghost advice here. So I'm going to go back to what you were saying about that apartment. There's one surefire way, not surefire, but reliable way that many people have employed to make it stop. That you ask them politely and firmly to leave. It works more often than you'd think. And for them to not follow you, one thing I do before any investigation is, like when I stood at the top of this dark basement in the Casa Madrid, I made my boundaries very clear. Said, I'm here to talk. You are not supposed to touch me in any way. Touch me, anything related to me. You can talk. I will listen. But when I am done, when I leave, you will stay here. You are not coming with me. And the only time I've had a problem with that is when I failed to say it. Because I was followed home from Archer Avenue Resurrection Cemetery. I think Resurrection Mary, that's the cemetery, by a little kid. And I was driving home like something doesn't feel right, but I wrote it off at the time because there's other cars. I've got music on, like, you know, I can't sense anything right now anyway. It's too loud. So I get home and I'm walking down the hall and I just feel this energy behind me, and I'm like, oh, hello, little kid, blonde hair, tall, blue-eyed, most angelic child you could possibly imagine. And I'm like, I can't have this kid following me around because it's just not a good idea, because they will cling on to you. They will suck your energy. They don't mean to, not always, but it's just not a good scenario.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to gently send this kid, you know? And I said, you shouldn't have followed me home. I'm very disappointed in you. That was very wrong. You need to go to your room and think about what you did. But I promise I'll come see you. Okay? And gone.
Wow. Dang.
Wow.
So if you tell them not to follow you, they really don't.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah, that is. Have you had any experience with like a poltergeist type of a spirit, like something where it's more malevolent and aggressive?
Yes. See, that comprises really the majority of my experience here is nasty things. I'm trying to just pick one. All right.
You can tell us all of them because we got, we love hearing that stuff.
Okay. So here's one where there was, like any self-respecting city has, is an abandoned asylum. Of course, Milwaukee is no different. You being from Tulsa, all the Eschweiler buildings.
Yeah.
Those red brick buildings on the hill right across from the medical college. Those. They were until they were torn down, quite violently haunted. And me being a curious teenager, as teenagers are wont to be, went out there with my friend and my sister. And I'm standing there with my friend Luke, who is also perceptive, very similar to the way I am. And, we're looking up at this building, and my sister's standing maybe 20, 30 feet behind us, and I just happened to turn just to check on her. And again, I don't see, but I perceive something standing like right next to her. She has no idea it's there. She, at this point in her life, she hadn't been exercising this to become clairaudience in the way that she is now. But I didn't want to scare her. And this thing was just dark. It was like a black papered blob. And I'm looking at it. It's looking at me. And it's like, you need to go. And I'm like, okay, I'll go. I don't think I'd do that now. But, at that time I did. And I said, okay, let's go now, okay? Let's go. And I'm trying to get my sister out of here because it's using her to threaten me to leave. And I'm like almost running because I want to get her out of here. And it followed us to the edge of this property. Like it just was on our asses the whole way. And it was just there. It was like every horrible thing you can imagine put into one ball of energy. So we left, and it like watched us leave. And I wouldn't normally advocate for a historic building being torn down, but if you could get rid of that thing, let it burn. There's actually apartments there now, and I have not heard one peep out of anyone living there of anything weird happening. So good, get rid of it.
Is there anything you can do in that kind of a situation? Is there any talking it over, like something that is that immense of an issue of an entity? Or is it pretty much going to be there no matter what? I mean, we've all seen the scary movies, you know what I mean? The Exorcist and all those, which is still, I've told that story many times. It's one of the first movies that I ever saw as a kid. My dad made me watch that thing, and it's still one of the scariest movies to ever, in my opinion, to ever see. It's just, ugh.
So you need more people. That is more than a one-man job. And usually you need someone who is very good, who knows something about demonology, who can bless an area. So you need to kind of, corner it and use whatever means you have at your disposal to get rid of it.
Right.
And there's a difference between human and inhuman hauntings. Mm-hmm. So if you ever hear at 3 a.m., it's not good.
Really?
So 3 a.m. really is like, this witching hour or the bad time.
Yep.
Where it's 100%. more active time, not necessarily bad time, but the more active time. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I heard some last night at 3 a.m., but that's because the kids upstairs were doing drunken karaoke. So,
spirits of a different kind.
Yeah, exactly. That also may have been why I didn't perceive anything whenever I lived in the haunted apartment. So, I was at my own other spirits were
active.
That can make a difference.
Yeah.
There's a reason we don't investigate drunk, and that might be it.
Well, we've had a few people come on talk about dark entities, shadow people, stuff like that, and that is one of the scarier type of hauntings or residual energies.
Mm-hmm. And they like the ones, we call them passersby. If you're a medium, you occasionally get people who are just drifting, and they'll see you and they're like, hey, you can perceive me. And
right.
This happened a lot more when I was younger. I've been able to kind of control it now, but I'd be sitting in my house and there'd be a voice I didn't recognize. And they would call my name in this weird, very creepy sing-song way. So I was sitting there minding my own business, and I'd hear, I'm home alone. There is nobody here. I'd hear, Christina. I'm like, okay. And eventually it just got annoying. And I'd say, yes. And I never get an answer.
Oh, man. I was going to ask, that's got to get old after a little while. I mean, being that person that they can talk to.
For some reason, they always pick on me when I'm waiting in line at the grocery store where they've got a captive audience. And I'll just be standing there holding a jug of milk and a loaf of bread, and someone will come out of nowhere and say, hey, I need to talk to that person. She's over there. She's, she's looking at the crackers. I'm like, and they won't let up until you go. So I got to give up my good place in line. Of course, there's someone in back of me with 4 carts full of frozen pizzas. And I'm like, okay, this is going to sound crazy, but bear with me here. Someone's trying to talk to you. They're giving you XYZ message. And usually they're like, wow. Okay.
Wow.
Thank you. And then I'll just be like, cheers. And then I'll go buy my milk.
Wow. That's quite a responsibility.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess, how often are people like? What is the response typically? Like, do people are they like okay, or are they kind of like? I mean, I'm sure that it would stand to reason that a lot of people would probably be taken aback, for sure. I mean, I certainly would be, like okay, because it's out of nowhere, right? I mean, basically, you go, you don't know these people, and you just go up to them, and you're like. Somebody wants to say something to you, and there's somebody.
The reaction's really, yeah.
I imagine it's pretty strong.
It is. It's a pull. I just can't ignore it, and the reactions really run the gamut.
Right.
I will have people say, "Okay, thanks," and then they just like, "Oh, there's a weird lady talking. I'm going to leave her alone," which is fine. I can't control your reaction. And many other people are grateful for it, and. There was this one where I don't really remember what I was buying. It was just a humdrum grocery trip. But the lady checking me out, like, I'm starting to read you when I just start looking at you. And I'm not trying to be creepy. That's just how it works. Like, I'm not trying to be that weird person who's staring at you and breathing heavy. That's just how it works. And I'm looking at her. And I'm like, there's someone, male, died some years ago. Here's what he looks like. And he's calling you a dumb peckerwood. And she just burst into tears.
Wow.
She's like, that's my father.
Wow. Damn.
And then I'm like, check out my stuff, and then I'll move on. And I was in Walmart once after work, and so there's always someone there minding the self-checkouts. And again, someone just is like, passed me on the face. They're like, her. I'm like, can't I just buy my shoes? I remember I was buying shoes. And I'm like, no, I need to talk to this person. Or you need to tell her that her husband's heart problems are going to be okay. She needs to make sure he takes his medicine. And I said, okay, this is going to sound crazy, but here's what I do. Here's why I do it. Your husband needs to take his heart medication, but otherwise he's going to be fine. He had just had heart surgery, days before. But people just, the reactions, they run the gamut. Most people are really quite happy to hear what I have to say.
Wow. I've told the story before. I had a neighbor that died, and I was the last one to see him alive, and so I felt like it was my responsibility to go talk to his wife because he was talking about his family nonstop. And then I found out that he passed away, and I could just imagine that's maybe the way you feel. It's like, okay, you have someone who's trying to get in touch with this person, and if you don't do that, then you're kind of letting them down, or I don't know. That just feels like to me a huge responsibility. And I mean, God bless you for doing that. Because I think most people like myself will probably just be like, I'm just gonna buy my milk and go. I don't want to interrupt someone's day, That's a lot to ask, But on the other hand, if I was
pleasure,
sure. If I was the spirit and I saw you and I knew, if I'm on the other end of it, I'm thinking, oh shit, I can actually get through to this person. Maybe I would do that. I don't know. My wife and I have this sort of running joke that, when we come back for the next life, we're going to do it better, And I'm like, well, but what if you don't recognize me? What if you don't? She's like, no, her thought is, no, we're going to repeat this exactly the same way. And I'm like, okay, but what if it isn't that way? What if, because she's like, one of the things we joked about the other day was Christmas cards. We've never done Christmas cards. And she's like, well, in our next life, we're going to do Christmas cards because I feel like that's one thing that we got wrong, And I'm like, well, should I remind you about the Christmas cards? Like, is that my responsibility now? Like, but it's funny. We joke about it, but it's just one of those things where we don't know what is going to happen. And I think that's the reason why we have we have a difficult time disconnecting ourselves from, we're a being that communicate, we see one another, we react to one another. You know, it's like Adam and I have known each other forever. How we know each other is a personal one-on-one relationship. If that person's no longer here, then that must mean that they are gone. Like there's no, the idea of the spirit hanging around or the soul or whatever it is that lingers, it's almost too much to wrap your head around. So it's like, you know, maybe UFOs and cryptids are easier to understand in that way because they don't have, we don't have the same connotation.
Mm-hmm. Now, that may well be the case because I'm not trying to get too sophomoric here, but you can shoot Bigfoot. Right. You can't shoot a ghost.
Right.
Right.
You could. I don't know why you would shoot Bigfoot, but you could.
Right.
We do not. I want to come out right now and say that we at the What's Your Weird Story podcast do not advocate the shooting or killing of Bigfoot in any way.
Please.
It would very much upset our special correspondent and resident Bigfoot expert, Mr. Jeff Hubbard.
Don't kill. Don't even shoot Bigfoot with a bow and arrow, though. For God's sakes.
Yeah, don't mess with Bigfoot.
Yeah,
he's our friend.
There's a reason they had successful messing with Sasquatch commercials, and it never turned out for the people who were messing with Sasquatch.
Right. Exactly. So.
Oh man.
So what else do you got? Do you have like a favorite encounter or a spookiest encounter, or
spookiest? Oh boy.
Or something that like, I don't know, maybe either changed you or affected you one way or another.
Yes, and this is a story that very few people know. So here goes. Just gonna throw caution to the wind. I spent 6 months more or less possessed. And this was not a demonic thing. This was I guess I'd be more apt to call it a human attachment. But this was from a place called Shaker Cigar Bar in Milwaukee. Fabulous place if you've ever been there. The owner, Bob, treats his ghosts extremely well, which is, not something I can say for a lot of places, but he's very good to his ghosts. It was and this is one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made. Don't ever do this. I made friends with a girl in the top floor named Molly. She had been murdered, burned in the fireplace and buried in the wall by a jealous lover. And this can be proved because she had been found maybe 10, 12 years ago. Her remains were found in the wall.
Wow.
So she and I had become what I really call it friends. And I made the mistake of telling her, you can hang out with me. And she followed me out. But I learned after a while that wasn't Molly. That was something masquerading as Molly. It was an entity from the basement who had been killed in the alley in a knife fight. His name was O'Connell. He was going to get out by any means necessary, and because of my absolutely unforgivable mistake, he did. And he was very good at making me think that he was something else.
Wow.
But the thing with that experience is that I have never known more, been more accurate, seen more in my life than when he was with me. So it was as a parasitic symbiotic relationship where he was getting to suck off of my energy, but he was also rewarding me at the same time. So it's like almost like I could see through time. People would come up to me, I'd say, here's XYZ. It was off the charts accurate. Then my friend Carrie was a medium like me. We're talking on Skype one day. She's like, who's your friend? And I'm like, no one, because I didn't want to get rid of it. She's like, no, who is that? Come on. Who's that? Who's this with you? And I was getting angry, like hostile. I wanted her to stop.
Right.
But Carrie wasn't having any of it. Thank God she didn't. So she, kind of helped me extricate it from myself. She was able to talk me into like, this isn't good. You need to get rid of it. It needs to go. Here's why. And like this person was like, no, she's lying. This is a good thing we've got going here. Why do you want to get rid of it? And he was like, it was like he was walking on my back, but like sitting on my shoulders this whole time. Like, hey, look what I got. I realize how insane this sounds. Like, he is no longer with me. He has gone back to his basement, and one day he and I are going to have a bone to pick with each other because I will be going to tell him what I think of him. Hasn't happened yet because of COVID, but one day funnel. I'm coming for you. But that was, I wouldn't call it scary. I'd call it unnerving.
Yeah.
I've never been scared by a spirit ever.
Oh, how did you get him to leave then? Did you just tell him to, or like, was there more to it since he had become so, I mean, literally, I guess, attached, really?
It was a battle of wills. It was like, you need to go. I'm like, no, I don't want you here. You need to go. And it didn't help that I then worked in an office that was connected to the cigar bar. They shared a wall. That was one of the reasons for this strong connection, because I was there every day and he could, be where he wanted to be and be with me at the same time. So it was just a battle of wills. Like, no, you got to go. You got to go. And he knew Carrie was onto him at that point. So it's like, he's like, all right, fine, I'll leave, because it was no longer worth it for him to have to fight for the energy anymore.
How long ago?
4 years.
Wow.
Okay. So you can see over, like, you can perceive over electronically, I guess, of like if you saw it over Skype, and can you like if you're talking to somebody on the phone or something like that, would you be able to perceive that there's somebody around them, or?
No, I need to be able to see with my eyes.
Okay.
Wow.
Or if I'm close to someone, I can think like, Kelly, my sister's name is Kelly. I'm like, what's going on? Like, I just know.
Right.
Because if you're close to someone, you just know. You just have a feeling. But I don't think that's exclusive to mediums. I think that's anybody.
Yeah.
Right. Some more than others, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have that perception. The ability to... It's powerful, though, because you do see it often. I have these weird things that happen, and a lot of times I get that feeling from people, like, I can feel something there, something's going on with you, or it's, maybe just maybe the aura, or maybe there's just something about, everyone's been around somebody who's just got a thing about them that's just like magnetic, or, special,
Yeah.
But people that can have developed sensitivity to that, to where everyone can present that quality or that thing, to get to that through simply just being around somebody is pretty special. Because I had some friends that would tell me, oh yeah, I see auras and stuff, and I was always like, well, I don't know what that means, but then then you have those experiences when you've experienced somebody who's like, oh yeah, I get that, I get why that person's like magnetic, a magnetic personality or something. But that's not everyone in my, I suppose everybody's unique and everybody has their thing, but some people are harder to pick out,
Absolutely.
That's my dumb way of explaining it.
That's not dumb. It's perfectly apt.
Yeah.
I would think that's more like a kind of empathic kind of a thing,
yeah.
Where it's more of a, you feel and you can kind of do like that. And I think that is something that I think that's something that we humans have. I think animals have it too, because if you're feeling bad and if you have pets, a pet can tell whenever you're in a certain type of mood or whatever.
Totally.
So I think that's kind of one of those things that are just natural to us all, basically, in some, again, to some level or another.
Yeah.
So, and it may have, and I think proximity and also relationships aid in the strength of that kind of empathy, and also, but there's, I think, also a lot of things with that is the body language and, micro expressions, things that we don't perceive because we're so used to them and familiar with it, that it's kind of like, like being able to just read something without thinking about that the fact that you're reading it.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah, your brain's like analyzing thousands of pieces of information at once. And you get those times when you're like, something about this person just is not, computing. Something in there is weird. I think the older you get, maybe the better bullshit detector you get, when it comes to you know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay,
totally.
I've been down this road before.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think experience in general has a lot to develop with that for developing.
Sure. And probably the same with your abilities, with psychic abilities.
Oh, sure.
The more people you come in contact with or entities or whatever, the more you can draw back on those, experiences and okay, yeah, I remember this is what that means, and sort of put it all into, which is kind of like life, I guess, in a way. We've just explained life.
Say, Barry.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest job you've ever had?
That's a good question. It would either have to be the time that I worked at a cattle feedlot or the time that I worked for a Greek painter.
Were you his model?
Not quite.
It's funny because one of my weirdest jobs was being a model in art school, but it was portraits, not full body nude. The reason I'm asking is because those jobs may be kind of normal, but we know people are out there that have weirder jobs than that. Maybe you're a mortician. Maybe you're a scientist trying to bring back the dinosaurs or the woolly mammoth.
That'd be cool.
That would be really cool. If you guys out there have weird jobs, unusual jobs, crime scene photographer, maybe you worked at an adult educational film set, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink. Just something that's unusual, out of the ordinary, and, a little bit weird. Hey, those are cool stories too. We'd love to hear those. So give us a call or an email or whatever. You know how to get a hold of us. Be part of the community of Weirdsville. Okay, a couple of other quick questions regarding your ability to perceive things. I guess, I don't know, maybe not entities, but I guess maybe it's spirits, entities. I don't know what you would call them. How to animals? Do you perceive animal spirits or entities or anything like that?
No, I've never been able to do that. Unfortunately, some people can. I am just not one of them.
And then that was going to lead to my asking about, like aliens or other kinds of non-human life forms, if there's been any kind of thing like that. Right.
Not that I'm aware of. I certainly won't discount the idea of aliens, but in my experience, I've encountered mostly pretty much all what I would consider either human or inhuman. Right. And inhuman is quite an umbrella, but in terms of if I think I've ever encountered anything extraterrestrial, no, I do not think I have.
I don't hear many people talk about that, but again, I don't, how would you know? Well, I guess you would know, but just, I don't know. Just a thought that I had before we, right before we started talking, before we logged on and everything. So, but go to what kind of like other kind of things have you connected with? Have you perceived? Have you seen? Not like the human spirits, but like other things like poltergeist or anything that's not. I don't know, not necessarily of earthly origin, but of human origin, I guess, maybe.
So, not to try to skirt around the answer for this or anything, but in terms of other things perceived, like, I guess I would classify the whole "your husband just had heart surgery" thing. That's not necessarily the connection with an entity. It's just like, oh, well, he just had heart surgery. He'll be okay. He needs to just take his medicine. Or occasions where I'll meet someone and I'll say, "Oh, your ex isn't coming back. He's not coming back. I'm sorry." It's just like situational awareness.
Okay.
But, if we're going to talk about things that might be considered inhuman or unfriendly, they make themselves very clear that a medium or someone coming in to cleanse is a threat, and they will try and eliminate that threat or make it go away. Whatever means they can, because they get energy, they get power off of it, and they enjoy it. They like scaring people. So when people see shadow people, that's like big red flag for me.
Right.
Because a human entity, they're white, they're gray, they're not. They are not like a solid black mass. They don't do that.
Yeah. And have you encountered the shadow people? Because those are definitely the freakiest things that we hear about.
I have. And as, if I'm just going in, someone saying, I'm having some problems in my apartment. I just moved in. There's some noises. It's not something I alone am capable of handling. The first thing I tell people to do when they are seeing shadow people, and I have helped people who are seeing shadow people, is like, hey, you need to get this place blessed and you need to make it your own. Because when you make of a house your own, like, this is my space. When you take space, that usually they're like, oh, this isn't worth my time anymore. Yeah. Sometimes they stick around. Some are meaner than others. It really depends on the situation.
Yeah. Makes you wonder how many decisions you make based on those types of feelings. Just like, I got to get the fuck out.
I wondered that too.
I got to get the hell out of here. This is not a good situation.
Yeah.
I've had that happen many times.
Yeah. Okay. That's human instinct. We all have that to some degree.
Yeah, that gut feeling, and that's tied to, I guess some kind of, maybe again, some kind of empathy, but also kind of, something more than, like you said, like instinct or something beyond that, more towards extra sensor. I mean, I guess ESP is kind of extra sensory, extra other, so without trying to, make it sound too, I don't know,
woo-woo,
hokey.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily, kind of woo-woo, but not necessarily woo-woo. But, just hokey, I guess. I don't know. I guess we would be hokey, but, we're...
Yeah.
But, there's, as we've stated so many times on the show, there's so much that we simply don't understand, and we think we know it all, but we certainly don't, if there's anything that's indicated how much we don't know about how, what we're, ready for and what we could perceive as like, looking at the effect of like, of social media on people, we were never ready for that. And most of the, people that started that kind of stuff definitely would agree. But, but like, that's what I think I think that, I don't know, maybe I think in the past we were more open to kind of the perceptions that you have, that and yet you've, and like you said, it's a muscle, you flex it, you exercise, you do that, to make it that stronger. And I think maybe that we have over, time, maybe we have just and I'm sure part of it is cultural, but where we decided that, we don't want to flex that as much, or maybe it's weakened in, some people, like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of just speculating and spitballing here.
I think you're onto something. I think, we've removed, spirituality from practice in a lot of ways, and sometimes it's, I understand why, but at the same time, it's, if you look back at ancient civilizations, there's a reason why they practice those things. And it was because I think that they were more in touch with the realities of Earth and the world. It's like when your feet are on the ground, touching soil, working the soil, living off the land, things become a lot more important, especially when you're dying at a young age. I mean, I think it was, I saw this crazy stat the other day. It was like the turn of the century in the 1900s, a man's average age was 40. Like, you died at 40. So things become very important when you've only got 40 years on the earth, you know?
Right.
And when you don't have the technology and the means to understand everything, like, I was talking to a bunch of young kids the other day, not young kids, they're like 30, you know, and it's like, we're talking about how technology's changed so much. And back when I was young, if you wanted to find something out, you had to get out the encyclopedia, you know, do research, figure it out. Now, everything that you want to know is at your fingertips. It's just a different type of reality. I don't think we're any better off, really. Like, in the broad scheme of things, like, I don't know that we're better off being more knowledgeable about things. I think that serves in some aspects of life, but
I think that, though, Barry, that I don't think that we're necessarily more knowledgeable. I think, in fact, a lot of our knowledge has been, people aren't retaining it. I think that we have access to knowledge. We have access to these things, but we don't retain it because we don't spend the hunt, you know, we don't invest time into finding out. We just Google it and you go to whatever pops up first,
right?
Wikipedia, and then it's fine, you know, and then whatever, you know, and in many cases, you know, just getting on the internet to look up something is not going to provide you with the correct information, you know, and there's all sorts of information out there that is just completely false and wrong. And, you know, and I don't even start, but, you know, we've made it clear that the earth is not flat on this show. But like, but
allegedly.
No, there's no allegedly to that, my friend. There's no allegedly to that. You can't make that stand up in court. You know, I will say anybody wants to bring that to me. I'm sorry, I'll fight you on that. But you know, but anyway, but yeah, I think that, you know, I think it's just something that we have lost that kind of.
Well, you
had to earn. You had to earn it and you had to learn it.
Yeah,
you know, look at it. Gone.
It's the difference between book smart and street smart. You know, I mean, that's something that whenever we were kids, we grew up, that was the thing. You know, it's like I growing up where we grew up was very sort of cookie cutter. You know, Midwest America. You know, this is what you do. You know, you go to school, you get good grades, you go to college, you do the thing, you get the job, you get the wife, all that stuff. What I found was when I went into the great big world was that there were people that were less educated than me that had a hell of a lot more of a grip on reality. And this is what it takes to make it through the world, you know? And so I think you see kids these days, especially, that are very smart, but there's no practical application to what they know, you know? And so it's like that thing, I think, getting back to this whole idea of spirituality and where it has, what place it has in our society, we've sort of, you know, the place in our society it has is on TV, you know? It's like, you can get a show now. You can make money at it.
Yeah.
But we're getting further away from that, from the reality of that. And something cool about what we try to do on this show is give a space to folks that have these real experiences and these real things that happen to them in their lives that they can't really talk about in other spaces. And that's what we do here. And we don't demonize or poo-poo anyone's experiences because they're your experiences, you know. What you do is unique to you. And nobody can, try to explain the experiences better than you. And so that's why we have folks on to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, Do you want to, Barry? I see Barry is loaded to chat some photos.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that, or do you have any more stories you want to share before?
Let's get to the reading part of it.
All right. So what we've got now, this is kind of a special thing. Barry has volunteered to load to provide Chrissy with some photographs of some relatives. So I kind of opted out. But I mean, if you have anybody, if anybody's tapping you on the shoulder saying, "Tell Adam this," that's fine. But I'm kind of opted out to whereas I'm just kind of like, I don't know, giving people their space or something. I don't know what I don't know. I also am notoriously, I'm a sensitive boy and I don't want to cry on the podcast in case that happens.
That's okay. Anyway. You don't have to.
But yeah, like I said, now if anybody says, "Hey, the treasure's buried here," or anything else, somebody's trying to tell me something. If somebody's trying to tell me something, I'll hear.
Nope, you already said. You don't want to be a part of it. So you let me know off camera, and I'll tell him.
So there's a picture here. There's a lady. Sitting in a fabulous little couch. So if I look at her, really the impression I get is that you could hear her coming from a mile away. Uh-huh. This was not a subtle woman. And I look at her and I almost feel like the click clack of like high-heeled shoes. Like shoes on the floor. That's one of the things I'm hearing. Like this is the sound I'm going to hear when she's coming my way. And she I'm seeing like not a loud or obnoxious laugh, but like a very boisterous belly laugh in my head. Mm-hmm. Like a larger than life personality, larger than life kind of way of being. And for everyone who out there who's listening, I can be wrong. And wrong, and if any medium says they're right all the time, they're lying.
Yeah.
So every time you talk to a medium, if you're going to hire one, say, "Oh, I'm right all the time." No, they're not. It's a falsehood. But anyway, I digress. They communicate through these weird ideas, these symbols. So did she was this the type of woman who would have like plastic coverings on the couch? So someone who's like kind of fastidious about her environment, who was like don't walk on the carpet, walk on the plastic sort of thing?
Not in certain ways, yes, but in some ways, no. I mean, she was fairly okay with not protecting things so much,
Okay. And I'm just going to switch because I'm probably going to go back and forth between two of these, but this older man wearing the glasses, who I just assume is you at a graduation.
Yeah.
And much like a lot of older gentlemen, I'm not trying to generalize here, but like I get like the smell of Old Spice in my mouth, my nose. That smell just like is like hitting me in the face with this guy. And like I see him, like it's like I wish I could describe this because it's a podcast, it's just gonna be audio. But he's like, this is sometimes how they communicate is through body language. So I have to do this.
Yeah.
You can see it.
Yeah.
He's almost like, "Oh, what have we here?" Like talking to the grandkids like this.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, what are you grandkids doing?" Like with the hand on the leg, like he's bending down to like get involved, like ask you how you're doing. Mm-hmm. And like, no matter what you were doing, like he'd be like, "Oh, okay, well, I don't know anything about that, but it's like this sounds like, oh, you grandkids and your newfangled things." It's like, "Oh, what are you kids doing?" It's like he's
yeah.
I get the body language a lot with them.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, well, what's this? What do we have here?" He's very curious, warm sort of person.
Mm-hmm.
To dote on the grandkids, and that's like grandkids. Well, that's this
Yeah.
energy that I really get from this guy.
Yeah.
He's so this is someone who walks to me from out of the afterlife almost with like a drink in his hand. He's got like a cocktail or something. He's like almost like he's just walked out of a country club, and he's like, "Oh, of course you're here. What are you doing here? Are we going to talk now?" It's like he was expecting me the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say this very often, but this man is fine. However he went, however he died, he was just like, well, my time to go. Put the hands on the legs, step up, and leave. It's like the Wisconsin goodbye. It's like, I should have gone a while ago.
Yeah.
But he's okay.
Yeah.
This man is just fine.
Yeah, good.
And it's almost like he's saying to me like, well, it's got a party waiting for me. I gotta go, but it was nice talking to you. Okay, we'll do this again soon.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Bye. He's fine.
Yeah, great.
Wherever he is totally fine. But that spice scent is like lingering in my nose.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with this lady, and I'm not afraid to admit that I'm getting less about her. She's a little less inclined to talk, but what's really sticking with me is that laugh. Like this really like, ha, ha. Like I can't do it. I can hear it in my head, but I can't do it.
Yeah.
She's just there. Like she is a presence. She's not going to be in my face about it. She's just kind of like, okay, I'm here. All right, I'm fine. But she just, and some do hang back more, others, some are more talkative than others. They're just like humans.
Yeah.
So to be able to perceive more for one than another is not unusual.
Sure.
But this gentleman, he's not the much more willing to have a chitty chat.
Yeah.
But he's, wherever he is, he's having a grand old time.
Great. Good. Yeah, those are my grandparents, so on my mom's side. So he enjoyed a beer. And he was very interested in the things that I was doing, kind of much like you said. Even though he didn't know much about the things that I was into, he was a very mechanical mind. He was he loved building things, and so he was always fascinated with like I was, obviously my history is in technology, like recording and things like that. So he was always interested in that kind of stuff. So he's, he was always that kind of guy where it's like, interested in what his grandkids were doing and very involved. Both of them very involved. So.
Mm-hmm. That's really what I can get just from a couple of pictures.
Cool.
Obviously, I could probably get more if I was
that's great.
in your presence because,
sure.
seeing your energy, that's kind of how that works. But
absolutely, yeah.
Sometimes I can get a lot from pictures. Sometimes I can't.
Sure. No, that's great. That's more than what I was picturing. That's cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
It was a pleasure.
We appreciate you coming on and taking your time to hang out with us and share some of your abilities and your stories and all that stuff. Just great stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's my pleasure. I'm glad to have been here.
Yeah. Well, hey, we have an open door policy, so anytime you want to come back and share some more stories or anything like that, you're more than welcome to. Just get a hold of us. That's awesome. Is there a way that if some of our listeners want to get a hold of you, or is there any way that anything online or something like that they can contact you? Is there anything like that, or do you not want to?
Oh, I am fine with my email address, just christina.cloakey@gmail.com. And if anyone out there needs help, wants help, I will do my best for you. I do not charge, as I was mentioned before. I'd be happy to help anyone who's really, who really needs it.
Cool. All right. Well, anybody listening, you can contact us on our social media, and we can pass on that information to you that way. So cool. Awesome. Well, great. Well, thanks again. This has been really
Thank you.
this has been really interesting, and that was really cool to see. So
Yeah, great.
cool. Awesome.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you guys too.
Okay.
All right. Take care. We'll talk to you
Yeah.
later.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, that's a nice T-shirt you got on there.
Oh, thanks, dude. It's brand new. Do you like that? It's one of the official What's Your Weird Story t-shirts.
Where'd you get that?
It's funny that you ask. I just got it off the brand new Spreadshirt.com site for the What's Your Weird Story podcast. There's no www. You just go straight to shop.spreadshirt.com/what's without the apostrophe WHATS hyphen YER dash WEIRD dash STORY, and that'll take you right there.
I mean, you can never own enough clothing.
Well, it's true, Barry. There's t-shirts for the ladies because, you know, they're cut differently. There's hoodies, which are really cool. There's two different kinds of hoodies, and there's also tote bags, so you can tote your stuff.
That's so cool, man.
So if you guys go out to spreadshirt.com, What's Your Weird Story, currently there are 2 designs, but there will be more going up very soon. So just keep your eyes out for that. And if you decide to get one of our shirts, tag yourself on Instagram to ours or Facebook. Show your love. Show us what you got. Let's see your true colors.
Great stuff. Great stories. I love
Yes.
listening to her angle on stuff, because she does have the ability to see some things or hear things, or it's like it's weird to hear somebody talk about how people have different sort of aspects of communication with the other side, but really cool stuff, Chrissy. Really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on and sharing those stories, and thanks to Brandy for pointing you in our direction.
Yeah,
that was really cool, and it was cool. It was cool to see her, her talk about, her to read the picture, and and admit that she's, there are chances that she'll get stuff wrong, and and I think we talked off air, but it was she did a pretty good job, right? Generally speaking,
for sure.
She got down kind of like
Yeah, it's one of those things. I'm sure it's hard for her because you're not in person, so it's like people talk about vibes and stuff like that, but I mean, it's that stuff is really kind of true. I feel like you can kind of catch something from somebody, get their energy and all that, and so doing it over Skype is weird for her, I'm sure. But no, it was great. She did a great job, and yeah, I mean, to put herself out there like that and do that, and I mean, it's just it's great, and we appreciate it so much. I mean, we don't have that ability to have people like her on very much, so it's cool when we get somebody like that.
Yeah. So if anybody listening out there has a similar ability or a different ability that's unusual, get a hold of us, and we'll talk, and we'll get you, and maybe you can tell us about it on the show. Yeah.
Hey, did you know I can blow bubbles with my spit? You know that?
I actually do know that about you.
You remember that? And then
you and Andrew Shirley.
That's right. He taught me.
Because Andrew Shirley, Andrew could launch them. He could make them fly into the air. Yeah. That's a talent.
It is.
And that's not one that's really good for our show.
I'm just saying that's my talent. That's what I can do.
Right. Well, I can. Do you remember I can fold my tongue back?
In
half.
Right.
And have it stay there.
Yeah.
And then some other tricks.
Yeah.
And then I have other talents that I can't mention on the air,
of course,
because national security.
Of course.
But anyway, but legit talents that she has.
Yes.
They're really cool, and like how she uses them, and does readings for people for free, and goes up and tells people, when she's out in public, and it's got to make her feel, and she says it, she's like, it sounds crazy, and it's got to be almost, I would imagine, when it first started happening, it would be somewhat embarrassing, because you would have this, spirit saying, hey, go tell that person this. And and like, I don't know, if you had a reserved type personality, gosh, that would be just a horror show in itself. Just going up to a stranger and saying, "I know something personal about you," because somebody who loves you in your life, who is no longer with us, is on another plane of existence, is telling me this to tell you. And and that's, that's got to sound crazy if you're the person hearing that.
Right.
But that's exactly what we're here for, because, we give everybody that space to, tell their crazy stories, and we understand that you're not crazy.
Yeah.
With that, you're just like, you're tapping into a bit of our reality that is not, normal and not in the regular everyday average thing, and we love that stuff. So you guys know that, so you should know that by now if you've been listening for a while.
Yeah, definitely. So. It's because you put yourself out there. You talk these crazy stories about what have you. We've heard the gamut. I mean, we have heard some crazy stories from all different kinds of angles, and so you take a risk whenever you're talking about this stuff with your family or your friends. But in a lot of cases, some people I think are a little more comfortable coming on here and talking about it because, it's not their friends and family. So anybody out there looking for, get something off your chest, whatever it might be, got some crazy stuff in your life that you've experienced, give us a shout. We'd love to have you on.
Yeah, you can contact us on our Facebook page or through our social media on Instagram, and which is where I'm mostly active, in Instagram and Twitter. You can email us at whatsyourweirdemail at gmail.com, or you can call the hotline, and that's 513-909-9821, and leave us a message there, and we'll contact you. We'll get you on and hear your stories, and again, your stories, it may not be weird to you. It may be something that is your everyday life, but not everybody else is an undertaker or a ER nurse or anything like that. I know we've got to have some nurse listeners, and nurses have great stories.
100%.
So, whatever, we just like to hear great stories. Anything that's like you're not going to hear on on your average day of conversation. Or if your average day of conversation is full of the weird, then yes, those stories too. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you guys again for listening, and keep coming back, and we'll keep putting stuff out, and we'll continue growing Weirdsville.
Yes. So have a happy Halloween. Join us again next week on the podcast, where we're actually going to be talking to Brandy, who's a return guest, who was our friend who connected us to Chrissy tonight. We got some cool stuff lined up for you in the near future. So just, hey, get a hold of us and have a good Halloween. And as always, be safe.
Be weird.
Oh, my voice cracked. Second puberty, I think I'm going through. As always, if you have a weird story, we want to hear it.
If you have a lot of them, we want to hear them all.
We can't do this podcast without your invaluable contributions.
Whether it's sharing your stories,
listening,
rating,
and spreading the word about the podcast. Thanks for listening. Until next time, be safe.
Be weird.
The stories presented on the What's Your Weird Story podcast are, to our knowledge, true experiences that our guests have had. We can't take the time to research all claims made, and besides, it's just not as